Welcome to the Amityville BOE School District Board of Education, March 12th, 2025, school board meeting. I'm now calling the meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. My name is Lisa Johnson, and I am the board president. Also currently at the meeting is my first vice president, Carol Seahawk, second vice president, Megan Messman, trustee, Caroline Fanning. It's anticipated that trustees, Chris Naring and Leslie Krebs will be attending the meeting, and trustee Winnie Canestro will be absent today. Also present at the meeting is our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation, Ms. Elizabeth Waxy, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Dr. Bridget Wade, and Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Mary Stevens. Also present at this time is legal, John Sheehan. At this point in time, at 5:35 p.m., can I have a motion to enter into executive session for advice from counsel regarding ATA grievances and ATA grievance update, I should say, and litigation matters?
So moved. Second.
All right, so I have Carol Seahawk as first and Megan Messman as second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It carries 4-0. We anticipate resuming open at 7 p.m. Thank you.
The exit's closed to where you're currently sitting. There's no smoking that's allowed on school grounds, and please silence your cell phones during the business of the board meeting. At this point in time, could you join the Board of Education in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Dr. Talbot, we're going to pass the meeting over to you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's budget session. When we last met on Saturday, March 1st, we conducted a thorough line-by-line review of the 2025-2026 budget. At that time, our total reductions stood at $1.2 million. However, as we worked through the process, we faced the difficult reality that some items, though needed, could not be afforded, while others had to be added back in. Since that meeting, we have continued refining the budget and identifying additional areas for cost savings. As a result, total reductions now amount to $2.3 million. This demonstrates our ongoing commitment to fiscal responsibility. So despite these efforts, we still have a remaining delta of approximately $749,000. The assumptions that factor into this figure will be detailed in tonight's budget presentation, providing a clearer picture of where we stand and what decisions lie ahead. While reducing expenses is critical, we are also actively pursuing opportunities to generate revenue. One such initiative is leasing available space to a potential child care provider. We have already met with one interested partner regarding Northwest, and we are in the process of scheduling a meeting with another. While this initiative will not fully offset the cost of operating a school, it will contribute additional revenue that strengthens our financial position. Every step we take to increase revenue helps us protect and enhance the educational experience we provide. One of the biggest cost drivers in the 25-26 budget is transportation. As you know, rising transportation costs pose a significant challenge. And tonight, you will hear more about billing costs, routing strategies, and most importantly, our plan to operate more efficiently. Our goal is not just to manage transportation expenses, but to maximize every dollar to ensure our student scholars get to and from school safely and reliably without placing an undue financial burden on the district. With that, I will now turn it over to our Coordinator of Transportation, Mr. Nate Spence, who will walk us through the transportation presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We are going to examine some of the budgetary items regarding transportation in tonight's meeting. As a reminder, our transportation requirements for Amityville are pre-K is half a mile, pre-K to grade 2 is a half a mile, 3 to 5 is a mile, 6 to 12 is a mile and a half, and the state minimums are K to 8, 2 miles, 9 to 12, 3 miles. We also have additional requirements for special education students. They must be transported up to 50 miles outside of our school district. And private and parochial students must be transported up to 15 miles. Taking a look at our 24-25 costs, we're on track to spend in district $2.9 million to transport approximately 1,500 students. Private and parochial schools cost an estimated $2.2 million to transport approximately 550 students. Special education costs amount to approximately $4 million per year. Summer school is $160,000 and athletics cost $250,000. So these routes are built upon the most efficient way that we can do them. So when you see a number for the high school, that is not just a vehicle that is used for the high school. It's used for both Northwest, Northeast, and also to serve private schools. And this is the way it is for our middle school routes as well. And the costs that you're going to see on our maps, again, are based upon the 24-25 school year. How are routes determined? Our district contracts buses with our contractor in 4 to 7 hour tiers, depending on the route requirements. This is to ensure that students arrive to and from schools with all of our complex in-district and out-of-district bell schedules. It's important to note that routes are only billed when students are on board. So if you see a bus sitting somewhere idle, it means we're not paying for it unless there's students on board. We use different capacity buses for different types of schools for out-of-district routes and also in-district routes to make sure that we're not using a vehicle that is too large to accommodate the amount of students for that route. Here is a sample of our billing schematic for our large buses. So if we were to look at Route 12 on the second line, we can see that it serves the high school, Park Avenue, Northwest, and it also does a 5 o'clock late run. If we go to Route 27 at the bottom, you can see that that serves Kellenberg. It does standby trips if there's any absent drivers for Northeast or Park Avenue, Park Avenue, Northeast or Northwest. Then in the afternoon, you can see it does a middle school route, and then it goes to Kellenberg again. So we're using the buses as efficiently as possible in these routing tiers. Here's a sample of our van schematic. If we look at the top line, AV42 is a 20-passenger van that's built at 5 hours, and that goes to the Lutheran school. If we look at line 43, we can see that that goes to Maria Regina. It also serves Northwest, and it does Maria Regina in the afternoon. Here's a map of our high school transportation. On the left is what we currently do. We transport 751 high school students. That's using 16 buses, and that's including the 2 that we use for our tech routes. That is an estimated cost of approximately $2 million. Now, it's important to note that this is not just $2 million for the high school. We use the high school buses for Park Avenue, Northwest, and Northeast. If we were to go with the state minimum plan, we would basically be providing transportation to only students that have special needs, and that would require 4 buses, and that includes the tech program, at an estimated cost of $504,000. Moving on to the middle school, you can see on the left is what we currently serve. We serve 184 students with 5 buses, and that costs approximately $630,000. And again, this incorporates the costs of Park Avenue, Northwest, Northeast, and some private schools.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. When he's done, I'll take comments from the community. Thank you. Yeah. So if you can just, if you can explain that, last time when we did the presentation,
Sure thing.
there may be some people that were not here. So one side
So-
explains one part, and can you just clarify what it is? Thank
Yes,
you.
so on the left-hand side, the blue dots mean they're students that we currently transport. The orange are people that walk to school. The right-hand side is what we would do if we went with the state minimum mileage. And again, basically, all of the high school would be walking to school. Here's the middle school. Again, the blue dots are students that we transport. The orange are students that walk to school, and the purple square is where the building is located. If we went with the minimum plan for state education, about 90 students would qualify. That would be a requirement of approximately 2 buses at a cost of $252,000. Again, that cost is included with the next slides you're going to see for Park Avenue, Northwest, and Northeast. Here's our map for Park Avenue. Again, on the left is what we currently provide. On the right is what we would provide if we went with the state minimums. We currently provide 15 buses, and again, the costs for these buses are included with the high school and the middle school tiers. If we went with the state minimums, only 99 students would qualify for buses, requiring an estimated 5 buses. Northwest, 450 students currently qualify at the half-mile distance. Again, the blue dots are students that receive transportation on the left. The orange are the walkers. On the right-hand side, the orange, again, are the walkers, and the blue students are the ones that would qualify for buses, which equates to 80. And we would need approximately 5 buses to serve that building. Moving on to Northeast. We currently serve 143 students. That's including the Strive program. So that's why you're seeing a number that's a little bit over what our standard preschool enrollment is. If we were to go with the 2-mile plan for Northeast, only 45 students would qualify for buses, requiring an estimated 2. We currently use 4 with what we're doing now. It's also important to note that with the plan to move the kindergartners to Northeast, I spoke with SED at length about this topic, and they've indicated to us that we are allowed to put the kindergartners and the preschoolers on the bus, and the state aid that qualifies for the kindergartners can be extended to the preschoolers. So we have an additional savings that we're looking at there. Again, we've been taking student counts on our buses, and these are our average student counts. It's important to note that when we start digging into this, the more kids we have on buses, the longer the bus rides are going to take. And it's important to note that the traffic and all of the other variables in the area are why we're using buses this way. We had a meeting with our contractor yesterday to improve our efficiencies, and we are planning on working together in some of those routes. We also have our child safety zone study, and I'd like to thank you all for approving that at the last board meeting. I'm waiting on the information from Eastern Suffolk BOCES, so that way we can move forward with that plan and hopefully have some cost savings associated once that child safety zone study is complete. And I dug in and found in the past 2 years, just this year alone, this school year, in October, we had a pedestrian hit in North Amityville. Then a day later, unfortunately, a man and his dog died. So 3 people, or 2 people and a dog in 2 days. And then last year in November, there was a pedestrian that was struck by 2 cars. So this is part of the reason why we provide the transportation like we do. And it's important to note that we're all united to make our neighborhood safer, and that humanity is never grown by creating barriers. We grow when we build bridges with our community.
Thank you. Can you just re-explain again about the child safety zone? And what that study, what the purpose behind that is?
So the child safety zone study looks at variables such as sidewalks, speed limits on roads, and intersections and crosswalks. There's a certain amount of points that are delineated based on the child safety study, and when we reach a certain number of points, it enables us to apply for a higher percentage of state aid in those child safety zone areas.
I just have another question then. In regards to transportation, when we talk about if we went back to the New York State requirements in terms of mileage, if we went back to high school being 3 miles and K through 8 being 2 miles, this not only would impact the Amityville School District, but it also would impact students who would go to some of the parochial schools that we bus the students to as well. That's
Yes,
local,
that is
like
that
St. Martin's and,
St. Martin's, because it's within our school district,
right.
they would be doing the same distance and walking for the 2 miles for K to 8.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions? Go ahead,
Yes,
Megan.
I do. Thank you, Nate. This was very helpful. We only got the slides yesterday, so it didn't jump out at me that you did provide us with the $1.5 to $2 million savings that I had asked to see. But you're essentially telling us that, I guess I had hoped that maybe there was some other way to get the $2 million savings, but you're saying we would have to go back to the state minimum, am I saying that in the right way? To get that savings out of
That's correct, yes.
transportation. Because we're moving K back to Northeast. And so now it makes sense to bus the UPK kids.
Because we will be getting state aid for the kindergartners that are on that bus.
Okay, and that covers the cost.
Just, Olivia,
Correct.
just kind of speak.
Yes, because they'll all be picked up at the same stop locations.
But the state aid is comparable to our cost for busing at Northeast. I guess there's no option because we have to bus the K kids.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. These numbers that you have in here, the costs, those are the projections
That is correct.
with the 30% increase?
No.
That is not with the 30% increase. That is currently what we pay this school year.
Okay. Okay, I'll let somebody else ask questions.
Leslie,
Thank
any
you.
questions?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. If we go back to the mandate, the New York State minimum, you know, we could lose funding for our children also, state funding, because we would lose a lot of attendance and we'd lose kids. So.
And
that's-
again, the other important thing that's important to note is we already have a backup of vehicles and walkers to our schools already.
Mhm.
So that's going to enhance the amount of traffic that we have around our
Right.
buildings.
And obviously the safety of our children walking. And it's going to affect hiring crossing guards, you know, from the county and the village, where it's difficult right now to get crossing guards.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Can I just ask something that Leslie just said? Just
Go
to
ahead.
like build on what you said? What do you mean by we're gonna lose our state aid for the
If
students?
kids are not, if students are not coming to school because they have to walk or take a taxi or whatever, we lose the busing.
But but students have to come to school,
Well,
right? I mean,
the-
so I don't know. I mean, up until age 16, otherwise, right? I mean,
But
they
you
have
would-
to come to
you
school.
would definitely see a decrease in attendance. and
I understand
therefore-
that, but I
And
don't,
that
but we
affects our
wouldn't.
state.
And that affects our state aid. That's a fact.
Yeah.
You,
I think what she's saying that it will affect our average daily attendance, which is used in the calculation of state aid.
Right.
So
Thank you.
it's, so it's not the enrollment, it's the actual attendance? That's, okay.
Actual attendance play a role. in
Right.
state aid.
Okay, thank you for clarifying
Chris,
that.
do you have any questions or comments?
I just, one thing to clarify, I don't, if you did it, clarify it today, then I apologize, but I don't, just for those that were not here at the last one, on the maps where there's the blue dots mixed in with the orange, that's special education students that
Yes,
are,
thank you. Thank you for
that's why
noting.
they are in the sea of orange getting services.
Carol, anything?
Question I have, Nate, and thank you for the presentation. Are you considering something in the middle? In between what we currently provide and the state minimum maximum?
That's not something that we've considered yet.
Haven't thought about it at all.
We've talked about it a bit, Ms. Boazzi and I, but to be able to come up with a plan like that creates several months of preparation and routing to get the numbers correct in what we would actually need.
So realistically, given that we need, our contract is up, we're going out for RFP now. We only have two options to give with the RFP, the state minimum or our current mileage. If we wanted to change it, it's too late for this current round of RFPs.
That is a question that I would like clarification from legal for.
Right, I
Okay,
think,
gotcha.
and I'm just going to, I think requires a voter approval. So that's what it is. So we can't just say that we're going to go from the, like the 3 mile requirement for the high, so it takes, so we're not take a.
No,
we're not
I
take effect
understand you
for-
need a referendum. I'm
Yeah.
just wanting to know what options is administration considering? Because as we all know, we have a million or a multi-million-dollar budget deficit to make up for. And transportation, as we know, is, one of the biggest drivers. So if it's possible that there's a middle ground, I was curious to know, are we considering the middle ground? But it sounds like right now, no, it's the state or it's the current arrangement.
Yeah, but we're also considering a lot of efficiency. So we're looking at all the routes and finding ways to trim back. And we're talking with the contract transportation vendor yesterday, and that's when they brought up the idea about if we have the same stops for pre-K and care, it will actually reduce.
Right.
Things like that, those little things that you do to reduce, to pull back are some of the things that we can do. Late buses will consider that. All those kind of things will pull back the cost a little bit for us.
Yeah, just remember just to speak into the mic a little bit.
Thank you.
Caroline, any more questions or comments?
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of, I feel like I asked this question last time, but I'll ask again, because if I don't remember the answer. How many afternoon routes are there?
For in-district or out-of-district?
I'm just speaking from experience as a parent. I feel like my kids, whether it's the middle school or the high school, there could be multiple late buses. Like,
So it
like
depends on the time of the year for the late buses, and
Mhm.
also the Leaders of Tomorrow buses are separate because they're funded by a different grant.
Mhm.
So when you see the late buses, it's based on the need for the building's after-school attendance at that time of the year. The high school one changes it several times because of the sporting programs. And we also have varying programs throughout the other schools.
But could there be multiple in a day? Like, I feel like the high school has a regular dismissal, a 3 PM bus, and then maybe a 5 PM bus, all in one day.
That is correct, yes.
Is that something that is being reconsidered?
Now, the 3 o'clock bus also serves the tech students that come back in the afternoon. So that one is essential.
Mhm.
We are looking at ways to improve the late run efficiencies. For example, I've been looking at the Leaders of Tomorrow buses, and next term, coming up next week, we're reducing some of the buses there for efficiency's sake.
Thank you.
Carol, do you have any questions? Megan? And then go
Um,
back to Leslie.
So the parochial schools, private parochial, required up to 15 miles? Is
Yes.
that what schools, so what, you have a slide here, but we're providing transportation beyond 15 miles right now?
There are a few schools that we are looking at to reduce for this coming school year, 25-26.
Okay, a few schools?
Chaminade is one of them. St. Dominic's is another one that I know off the top of my head that is over the 15 miles.
And so in here, you didn't show us what that cost amounted to, right?
I would anticipate approximately $100,000 to $200,000, depending on what we're able to reduce for those schools and how we're able to combine them onto other routes.
Mhm. So, it wasn't required to go to vote a referendum to provide beyond the 15 miles?
This was something that was done by the administration many years ago that has just stayed in place. I believe we were going to talk about reducing it at the beginning of this school year, but as with the St. Martin's situation, we wanted to give them an additional year to plan for that and not take it away right before the start of the school year.
So you had already started conversation with those families?
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay, thank you.
And we're getting more requests in. The requests are due by April 1st. So we are going to be sending out the correspondence in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Leslie, did you have something? Because nothing, I'll go to Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
For the schools that are beyond the 15 miles, are there any districts that have anything kind of set up where you'd work together, like if Copiague and Massapequa each had students going to those schools beyond that 15, where you can kind of save cost with combining it with them?
So that is a possibility. Again, when we went back to the beginning of the school year and I did our first presentation on transportation, I talked about piggybacking. Unfortunately, we couldn't do any piggybacking plans because none of the districts in our surrounding area had that in their RFP. In the new RFP that we've just written up, I ensured that that was in there. So this coming school year, we can be the anchor point for our neighboring districts that use EBT or other vendors as well.
That's great.
Meaning like we would go to those districts to pick up their students, or they would bring their students to us?
We
or
would
something?
create a piggybacking agreement. So essentially, I would go to EBT and say, what do you have going where? And what do you think we can share with other school districts collectively to save everybody money? And then they go to those school districts and see if they'd like to combine the bus routes with us to pass the savings along to them.
So if we combined, is it just a savings that we get with their, or is it something where it brings some sort of revenue where they're using our busing?
It's just a savings.
Okay.
It's distributed across the multiple school districts using the vehicles.
Okay,
It will have been revenue if we had our own buses. Yeah.
gotcha.
Any other question from board members? Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
As a reminder, with transportation, the cutoff date is April 1st, and any applications that come in after April 1st must be submitted to the Board of Education via a resolution for approval. Secondly, any parochial schools that exceed the 15-mile state law must be either board approved, or as you spoke of earlier, Trustee Nearing, a central pickup point that is under the 15-mile distance. So those are conversations that we've been having in ways to support our community and families, and also providing the Board of Education with the cost factor surrounding that.
I'm sorry, Dr. Talbot, the central pickup point, so are we trying to figure that out and then
So for
associating a
example,
cost to that? Okay.
So for example, if we have been transporting to a parochial school for 3 years and they exceed the 15-mile distance that the law says we can transport, then we can discover a mutual checkpoint where those students will have to come and meet together that's under the 15-mile distance. And so those are the conversations that we're having. And what he shared with you around the cost of parochial, for parochial transportation. We'll be bringing you back the cost of what that would be to the district to make that decision.
Okay.
So we're wanting to communicate this to the families as soon as possible. As it was discovered last year, there was an extension of time, but we do want to give families ample time to make the necessary decisions that may have to be made.
Thank you for expanding on that. Thank you.
Sure. At this time, we are going to continue with our budget presentations. As we had reiterated during the beginning of the meeting, initially, our budget started out at 124 million, and the additional cuts that has taken place around non-mandated expenses, building and grounds, special education, comes to 2.3 million. So tonight, our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, Ms. Buatsi, will give you an update where we are after these cuts, where we stand, and walk us through two scenarios, as well as pick up where we left off with our line-by-line budget. Ms. Buatsi. I just wanted to make the board aware, not that we want to put him on the spot by any means, but Mr. Pete Iovino, who's our network engineer, is here tonight. So as we look into the cost factors around technology, he is available to provide any clarity that may be needed in those particular areas. Thank you.
Excuse me, Dr. Talbot, just for clarification, are we starting from where we left off, which is at page 37?
We will get to the page 37 after we run through the first 5 lines of the new, showing you where we are with the budget.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
So as you can see, with the cuts that Dr. Talbot identified, and I gave the board a very comprehensive list, $2.3 million, our budget to budget increase is now 4.11% increase. And again, the driver is transportation. And we are hoping that if we let out the RFP, the numbers will come a little lower. If it comes a little lower, it will help all of us. This is the revenue budget that we presented on March 1. Things have not changed yet because we are waiting for the New York State Legislature to come up with the state aid, which will be released around April 1 if everything works out. The indication is that foundation aid, they are both houses, both chambers are advocating for about 3% increase in foundation aid. Foundation aid makes up about 75% of the state aid that we receive. The rest of it is expense-based, which means that you spend the money and you request for reimbursement, especially in the area of special education, and you have to file the necessary forms to get it. And that's why we keep on talking about stack form system for tracking and accounting for children. That is a very important part of the work that we have been honing in on, and it all depends on the kid's IEP. We have to identify the cost based on the kid's IEP and send the claim form to the state. We've been working vigorously on that in the business office to enhance our state aid. So if we get a combination of foundation aid increase and everything is if, we give it a good foundation aid increase, and we also get an increase in the expense-based state aids, we may be doing well in this area. And if we do, our revenue projection here will go up. And you can see it in the next slide. This was the original budget. This is the cuts that we have made so far. And this is the budget after all the cuts. If you go to the last page of the new budget that I gave you, you would see this number there. This is the revenue as it stands. Dr. Talbot talked about a delta. This is where we are. But it assumes that we will get the state funding, $2 million from our state representatives. That's the assumption built into this.
Ms. Barchi, what's the
Yeah, okay.
deadline for sending the information for IEPs and whatnot, those forms?
The stock forms?
Yeah.
We have, this year we can go up to back to 23, 24 to file the stock form. If it's summer school, we were told 21, 22. So it is date sensitive. We have to go back and claim all those costs. And the costs include industry student. So if you are providing services to industry student, you should be able to look at the IEP of the services that the kids are getting and come up with a cost estimate for the particular student. It's student by student. If a kid has a one-to-one aid, how much do we pay the one-to-one aid? What kind of benefit that it's analyzing every student and all the services, including related services. Even if a kid goes to BOCES and we provide ABA services,
Right.
home services, we can tag on that cost and get our state aid back. That's what is called the expense-based aid. It is being very meticulous
Yeah, I'm
with
sure.
your reimbursement request.
Thank you.
Olivia, just another quick question, please.
Yes, hi. The other day, we were given the F fund.
Yes,
Those are the federal funds.
correct.
Is that in the $45 million?
No,
We're
They
not
have-
accounting for,
they are by themselves.
okay.
When I did the presentation last week, I showed you the flow chart of the funds that we have in the district. We are now working on general fund only. The
Okay.
federal funds stand on their own. That's the IDEA grants. And then we have title grants. Those are separate and apart from the
Mhm.
general fund.
Okay.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Go ahead, Carol.
Or two comments. On March 1st, when we first saw this for the first time, I, and I'm sure many other people in the room were really taken with the notion that once again, the budget is depending on the $2 million
Correct.
bailout. So now 2 years in a row from local government. I did not really take notice at that time that it's also depending on 2 million from the fund balance.
Oh,
It just kind of flew over my head 2
yes,
weeks
yes,
ago.
I'm
and
sorry
now I'm
about that.
Well, I just think it's, when you say that the deficit we're working with is, 749,000, that's presuming we're going to get 2 million from local government, and we are going to take 2 million from our fund balance, which is our rainy day fund. So that's 4 million that's not sustainable, not replenishable. So that's unnerving, to say the least. The other thing, I just want to point out, I think it's an error. The bottom 121, 191, that number, when you flip to the next slide, you changed it to 121, 791.
Oh, sorry about that. Good catch. You should have called me. Good catch. Okay.
So
Yes.
it should be 121, 191, correct?
Correct.
So instead of that being 749, it's 1.3 mil. It's a balance of $600,000.
Yeah, you're right
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
So $600,000 plus 4 million, that's a big budget gap.
Yeah.
So
But we are
As-
still working through fund balance analysis. So we'll get to the fund balance. We will update the fund balance and get to and see where we are with fund balance because we are doing very well with revenue as we speak.
Okay, and I guess I just want to say, pretty soon we'll go back to the line by line, and it's tedious and it takes time, and it took 4 hours to go through 30 pages last week. At the end of it, there's going to be really hard cuts that everyone as a community is going to have to face, and people are going to ask all of us, did you go through every single line and try to squeeze every ounce of money you could get out of that budget? And I want to make sure we can face the community and say, yes, we did. We went through every line and looked for savings everywhere.
And we took a step forward in that direction.
I can
Cabinet
see that you
met,
did, yeah.
And we compiled a whole list
Mhm.
that was going through the entire budget line by line and coming up with, if there's if there's a story, and we know that we can cover it another way, because the mandate we're given is come up with a bare bone budget. And
Mhm.
that's what we're doing. We went through it and we came up with 3 pages of cuts and talking to people, are you going to need this? If not,
Yeah.
can
And
we
we're going to
take it back?
continue going through it
We'll
together. So
continue
I can see
going.
you did a lot of work, and we're all going to continue doing it. And it's still going to be hard at the end.
Thank you very much.
But Olivia, you just mentioned the bare bone budget that was requested, so you are creating the bare bone budget with no increases to anything but contractual obligations?
But with the thoughtfulness that you don't know what will happen. You do not know the kid that will walk through that door. So even with all the bare bone budget, you have to have some thought process. You have to estimate some safety within certain codes to take care of any unforeseen expenditures that will come during implementation.
And we had a lot of those circumstances last year.
Last 2 years.
Yes.
Yes,
last 2
when
years.
we had 5 students enter the school district.
Right.
That's something that can happen anytime. You can anticipate it. But the best thing is to build a little safety in the budget. That's why everything that we do, the hiring practices and everything, we have to be careful and make sure that we monitor the processes very carefully on an ongoing basis. So if we secure the additional $1 million in state aid and secure the $2 million, based on this, we'll be left with $600,000 balance to deal with. That's if we get all the monies that we are anticipating. Right now, I said the delta was going to be 749. If we get the additional $1 million in state aid, then we have about $300,000 deficit that we have to deal with. We have to go back into the budget to see where we can make cuts. And we have to look at our revenue stream again and see whether there are areas that we think the revenues will go up. A good example is the facility that we are thinking about, which was shared with you in Essex, I think. I'm not supposed to say.
Yeah, we can't say right now.
The renter.
We can't say right now, yeah.
Which line has the $1 million additional shown in the revenues?
We are projecting, we are saying that
On
if
this
we
slide?
get $1 million more here, it will help us to cushion the budget.
But you're showing the 759, which is what's posted on the New York State website.
Yes, this is what is
So
posted in the
what-
New York State website. This is the governor's budget.
Right.
This is not from the legislature. And the indication we've been getting, the alerts that I've been getting, which I'll share with you this Friday, is that both houses are advocating for about 3% increase in foundation aid. If that comes to fruition, it means that our state aid will go up a little bit. They are advocating for a minimum of 3% increase in state aid for all school districts. If that comes to fruition, and we get an increase in our expense-based aid, then our number here, the $45 million, may go up. We don't know how we will land at
So
this
you-
point in
Okay.
time.
Right now, you can't put it in because it's nothing definitive.
This is the number we have
That's
Right.
from the governor.
Right.
Right.
We don't have what
Proposed.
the real estate aid numbers yet.
Right.
It will be released April 1.
Thank you.
So scenario 2, if we secure the additional $1 million in state aid, but we are unable to secure the 2 million in financial assistance, what are some of the strategies that we are planning? And we'll look at, we have a security consultant who comes in twice a week, 2 times every week. We'll look at the cost and see what we can do about it, either eliminate it or not. We'll go back to review transportation. My colleague has done an extensive work on this. This is what he and I were working on.
Olivia, just move the mic just a little bit more.
Yeah,
Thank
he and I were working on this the whole weekend. And then we'll decrease after-school activities to reduce the cost of security. Building use is one of the areas where we've been expending a lot of money. Yes, it is our community. Yes, it's our taxpayers, but we have to look at it very critically and see whether there are some savings in that area. Then we will reduce 1 position, eliminate ELA and math instructional coach at the high school. These are some of the things that we are working through. We continue to work through those strategies.
So I do have a quick question. So as you are working through this, the 4 bullet points that you have there, do they add up to the 2 million, or you're working to get them to the 2?
We are working to get to the 2.
Okay.
And we are hoping that this is the expense side. We are also hoping that we will get additional revenue.
Okay. It may be premature if you can't answer it, that's okay, but how close do you think you are to that 2 million right now?
We can go back to the table. I can see 500,000 here.
That's my question. Okay.
I just have a question before we move on. What is the services of the district security consultant? Like, what do they actually do that they're here once or twice a week?
He's responsible for putting together the safety plan. And this position came about when, when we have an active shooter in the district. They usually have law enforcement background. So they are able to lead because most of us do not have that background. So they help us in that regard. And the company he works with, they continue to train us on some of the things that happens and some of the preventative measures that we have to take to avoid any kind of incident. And anytime there's an incident in the nation, they send us an alert to tell us some of the things that we should avoid in our schools.
I also know that the person that we're talking about, he's been working very closely with state on the new district-wide safety plan,
Correct.
as well as Homeland Security,
Correct.
to bring them in to do a higher level of active shooting training.
Correct.
So on this page, I'm very concerned with the potential for the staff cuts. So,
This is a new position, so.
oh, those are new
Yes.
positions?
Yes, it's a new position, so it will not be a cut. It is a new position that will be eliminated.
Did we also create other new positions that are still in? Like there was like some additional social
Accountant
work,
is
the
in.
accountant.
The accountant is in, I think that's just about.
Was there social workers?
Social worker, psychologist.
Those are
yes,
still in,
Yes.
But all these cuts right
These
here.
are all IEP. And then we have position for a new Strive class. So those positions, we anticipate an increase in enrollment. So we have to take care of that.
And I believe the last meeting, when we were speaking about the accountant, it was with the idea that they were hopefully gonna, with the savings and everything that they would provide, would kind of be
Correct.
self-funding for that
Correct.
position?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And I think we need to keep in mind that there were some positions that we had suggested that we would like in the budget. As we move forward, we're gonna have to make the decision if we want some of those positions to stay in or not stay in.
I guess I'm kind of curious, the attachment that we got the other day that shows cuts that you made, are you going to go through that separately from this? Or are you going to integrate it in the line by line budget?
It's already integrated in the, that's why I gave you
Right.
a whole new copy. Everything is included in the copy that I gave you.
The newest line by line?
Correct.
Right.
Okay, sorry, I brought my old one, but we're going to
Correct.
continue going
And
through it.
the only thing I did was I maintained the same page numbers so that it's easier on the eye, because when you're going through the budget, it's a lot of pages. So I try to keep the page numbers the same.
Okay, thank you.
For instance, we are going to special education and it's page 37.
All right, so we're going to go to page 37 now. You guys all at 37? Are you at 37? Carol and Caroline at 37? You're at page 37?
I'm of my old copy.
I know.
Do you want to get a copy from the front, or there was copy that were provided to us in the boardroom at
No, I know,
executive?
I feel bad. I'll work from the old one.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, Olivia.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leslie, you had a question?
Yes, I just, anybody has question on page 37?
All right, so I'll go around. Leslie, anything? Go ahead.
I do. For the Park Avenue speech teachers, you increased it by 35,000. Do we have two speech teachers there?
Park Avenue is
Oh, I'm sorry, 10103 1111,
03.
right midway almost
Here.
below.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah,
211?
No, Park
No.
Avenue speech, it's a little bit below the bottom.
Park
know.
Avenue Street, that's the one that's.
I mean, a little bit below the middle. Yeah.
Park Avenue, oh, okay, it's 101.
right. We had an approved budget of $211,000 for 24-25.
Yeah.
We only have spent 50,000,
Yes,
and now your budget is 245,000 again.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, we increased it to 34. Are there 2 or 3 teachers there now, or?
let me see. I'll, because I have to go through my details.
Yeah, okay.
To get it,
Right.
so I'll give you the response on Friday.
That's fine, thank you.
Chris, do you have anything on this page?
No.
Megan, anything?
Ms. Buatsi, the St. Martin Special Ed
Just speaking to the
teacher
microphone
line,
more.
does that represent one full-time special ed teacher
Yes,
in St. Martin's?
yes,
Okay, doing resource room.
yes.
Thank you.
Megan?
Between the two versions I have, oh, I'm sorry. I guess it's going down, the Northwest aides and the Park Avenue aides.
Yes, those are the ones, some of the cuts that I gave you in the list.
In the file from yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone, Caroline, anything else?
My only observation about the whole page is that there seems to be a lot of variability, like, is it just people moving around?
No, it is based on salary projection. Yes, and people moving around. From last year to this year, there was a lot of movement.
Mhm.
Yes, lots and lots of movement.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna go to page 38. Chris, anything?
Yeah, I'm just comparing the new one versus the old one.
I know.
So I had, on the older one, I had special ed administrator salary is increasing 121,569. But now I'm seeing the new one, it's a decrease of 12,431.
Yes, that was the code that if you go back to the list, we have the one with the yellow, the list that I gave you, which looks like this. There's if you match the code, there is an IEP facilitator that we put in that code that we removed, we eliminated.
Right.
134,000.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
134,000.
Mhm. Do you see it?
Yes, I see it now.
You see it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Leslie, since I'm on that side, anything?
Just where is the assistant, director of,
Special education.
yeah?
Well, a good
Where-
question.
Where is their salary?
Yes, the assistant special education
PPS.
director is paid from a grant. So you don't see it here.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yes, yes, yes. Always has been paid from a grant.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Carol?
Watsi, third from the bottom, the OT and PT services that
Yes.
represents all outsourced services.
Thank you, yes.
So did the conversation happen again about bringing in our own people to save money? I do realize the specifics of IEPs,
Mhm.
but is that a conversation that's happening? This is an exorbitant amount of money.
Yes, but because it's also because of the uniqueness, as you said,
I
of the
understand.
services. Where it is more beneficial,
Okay.
especially with speech, we bring in speech teachers.
Mhm.
But some of these services are so unique to the kids and is all driven by students' IEPs. So as we go along, you see that this year is going down. In the past couple of years, this is where we've got a lot of strain on the budget. We are looking at each vendor, how much they charge us, and this is one budget code that we are we're looking at all their timesheets to make sure that this, what they charge is indeed for
Right.
the services that they provide. So it's also looking for savings within that code. Yes, to your point, when they say, when we can provide it better with our own employee, we go that route. And you can see that we said there was some speech teachers
Mhm.
in the 24-25 budget, as well as a proposal to bring in a speech teacher. Mary, am I right? Yes, in the 25-26.
Thank you.
I just, for that particular same line item, because I know it was a conversation that occurred last year. When it comes to OT, PT, and the other support services, the question that I have is, I know you said depends on the IEP and the needs of those individual students. So it's typically probably several OT and PT individuals that are working with the students. So it may be hypothetically 4 to 5 OT, PT individuals that may come into the school, or they may, depending what the needs of the student, they may have to go to that individual.
Correct.
One more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one more quick one. I see we have, of course, we have special ed teaching assistants in all the schools, and we have a district-wide special teaching assistant for 84,000 is budgeted for 25-26. We have not used, in 24-25, we did not use the 84,000.
That is an excellent question, because when you are putting together a budget, especially the special education budget, you have to put in some kind of safety. That's what we're talking about. Because if a kid walks in September 1 and need a one-to-one aid, we have to be able to provide those services. So you have to anticipate all those costs now, because you don't have anywhere else to go to get the money to pay for it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Megan or Carolyn, I think I missed you guys. Anything?
On 38 still?
You were still on
I think
38.
I'm okay with
Can I go to 39?
Yeah, go ahead,
39.
39. I'll start at the other. Caroline, any questions? 130,
This,
39.
yeah, this is one where you reduced 2250. I'm comparing it to the subtractions.
Good catch.
Yeah, so can you
Yes.
explain what that is?
Yes, a very
Thank you.
good catch. What happened was, we sat with the director of special education, and she told us that she will be bringing back about 3 students who are currently at BOCES, and it's on the list,
Okay. thank
first
you.
page.
That's the BOCE Center Opt 3, right? you're
Correct,
Talking about?
correct. 3 students. So we'll be servicing them in district
Okay.
instead of placing, and that is the exact cost you see there. One of them,
Yeah.
they are very significant.
Thank you.
Carol, anything?
No, thank
Megan? Chris or Leslie? Page 40. Any questions? Chris, Leslie on that side? Megan? Carol, Caroline? Go for it. 41.
This is BOCES Arc Ed.
Yeah, I do. All in the bottom, there's nothing spent or budgeted for the upcoming year. Why is it so inconsistent?
Yes, this is an area that we work with. If you recall, if you look at the appropriation status report that we report every month, there was a line with 108 negative.
Mhm.
So I work with Ms. Stevens, and what we are doing here is to repurpose all the monies and put it into this line.
Which
You
line?
can see it. You see this?
Okay,
We are putting it
thank you.
all at the high school. The next page.
got it. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So all that just goes, okay, it's a shift.
Correct.
Got it.
Any other questions? So we went from 41 to 42?
Yes.
42, anyone?
No, I think
That's
that
summer school.
clarified
Yeah.
my question on
Okay,
the
some-
whole summer school.
Yes, we are
section.
putting it all under one line because it all
Right.
occurs at the high school instead of spreading it all over the building.
Okay, that clarifies for me.
Yes.
So 43? Nothing on 43. We're on page 44.
Yeah, I have a question. The top line looks like we created a new position last year and now we're ending it, the librarian.
Yes, that position moved to another building. This is all the changes that we made when, at the beginning of this year, that position moved to another building. I think that position moved to Park Avenue. I think,
But they have,
What-
I guess, it looks like all the buildings have one, but Northeast,
yeah, we eliminated that position. Yes.
but
that
it was just
position wa-
created last
Yes,
year.
that position was eliminated.
Okay, but I guess I was surprised to see it. Was it a new position last year? Because
It wa-
it doesn't exist in the first two columns.
Mhm. That position was,
Grandfather.
I just don't want to mention names, but that position was,
Okay.
was switched to another building.
Okay, and I'm also further down the line, it almost looks like we built a library at Northeast with the position and them getting way more in supplies and books.
Yes, because of the movement of the first grade. K from northwest to northeast. The libraries over there got a little bit more so that they can do their libraries.
But that was last year, though. I'm not looking at this
Last
year's
year.
column. I'm looking at last year's column. I'm just surprised that last year,
Is that the supplies code?
The
yeah,
equipment,
Mhm.
or, yeah, the equipment, right?
the one for
supplies.
18,000.
Oh,
For the 24-25 school year she's referring to.
This one here?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, this is something that we have to look at.
okay.
If it's something that we have to trim back, we can trim back.
I mean, if kindergarten is now moving to more Northeast, it makes
You're right
sense.
about
but,
that.
You know, we're always
Yes.
wondering what's
If we
happening with
already have
Northeast, and
this,
it's,
In 24-25, we may not need this.
Mhm.
You're right. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any other questions on this page?
So does that mean you're gonna look at that line item?
Still look
Yeah.
at it.
yeah, depending on, right.
Page 45.
I have questions.
okay.
All right, start with Leslie.
I have one. I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
For the middle school, why is it so high, the budget?
Oh.
For the library books? 20,000 versus 3,000, 3,000, 3,000 for the other schools.
And then
Go ahead.
390
This
for
is
the high school.
expenditure from last year. I have to find out, I
Yeah.
know she is on top of
Right.
her library budget.
Right. Does
Like
that
the new
include
middle school
technology
was
also?
No, it doesn't include technology, but she stays on top of her budget and she used whatever she had last year.
Okay.
What was the number?
But
I didn't hear.
it's
So just
something
go-
that we have to look at to see whether it's equitable,
Okay,
because it's a little bit too high.
All right. Right, so that's an
Third.
area that's an area that will be reviewed.
Third from the bottom, the BOCES NASA Ed communication, that's jumping by quite a bit. What is that?
This is for,
Third from the bottom.
here, this is the 94,000. This is for we have a COSA with Nassau BOCES where they come and check all the printers in the district. Pete is here. So, and, they give us all the toners and everything else. So that's where we budget for it.
So is
The
that same
supplies.
amount coming out of another line somewhere?
No, coming from here.
Can I follow up to that one?
Well, in 1 second, is a
But,
percentage of,
but you know what? I'll double check it to see, because we pay about $70,000 for toners district-wide, and we get it through this Nassau BOCES COSA.
and so this is aidable, correct?
This is all aidable. Anything, anytime you see a number with 490 after the first 4 digits, it's all BOCES, and it's all aidable.
But why would it go up? If it's just toner, like, do you expect the toner usage to go up?
No,
Like,
if you look at 22, 23, we spent
yeah,
78,000. Last year, we spent 93,000.
23,
So-
24.
23, 24. It means that the budgeted number here is a little too low. This should be the correct budget. Because if you compare it
Right.
across,
oh, okay,
right?
got it. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Chris, you have a question?
Those were both of my questions, but so what caused the budget to be so low last year when we had already spent over that amount the previous years?
We're going back and forth as to where that.
Olivia?
We're going back and forth as to where that should. These are very detailed research that you do for every code. And sometimes, once in a while, you miss it.
Okay.
Just to clarify that originally it was budgeted in 5011, and that's why it's reflecting a lower amount
Mhm.
last year. And it was switched to this code 5111.
Okay.
Can we move on to page 46? Nothing on 46.
No.
Can you go to 47, please?
Gotta compare.
All right, so I'm going to start on this and once you're ready between,
explain what changed between?
is there any way that you can maybe share with us what has changed instead of us trying to
On
go back
this-
and forth?
Um,
Do you remember offhand? Or we're trying to take a look, we're trying to compare the old with the new?
yeah, most of these are BOCES services. It starts from here down. These are completely aligned with the prior year. This is where we pay our tech. This is where we pay our tech 4 tech guy, altogether we have 7. We have senior engineer, we have 2 techs. Pete, correct me if I'm wrong. We have a senior engineer, we have 2 techs, we have 2 data analysts, right? 4 techs and 2 data analysts. And that is included in this line. And that's the $1.5 million that you are looking at. Come over.
Yeah, he's coming up.
Good evening.
Just speaking to the mic for us. Thank you.
All right, so that code, it provides all of the on-site engineers, but it also provides our Chromebook insurance. It provides money for our endpoint security, which is on all of the servers and all the desktops throughout the entire district. We are responsible for purchasing St. Martin's devices each year, so money for St. Martin's is allocated in that code as well. The yearly phone support is included in that code. The Alcatel, our network switch money is in that entire code, which is all our network switches throughout all the closets and all the buildings. A lot of our Wi-Fi support and the ClearPass software is included in that. All that 1.5 million, but that's all through BOCES. It's all, I think, with 60% aidable, basically.
And I also wanted to clarify the computers and the services that we provide St. Martin's. We are required by law to give them an allocation, and that is aidable from the state directly.
So we budget for it, we pay it out, but then we get it back. But
Correct.
we don't get it back into the next.
We don't
Yeah.
get it back till the next year. So when you see the $45 million of state aid, that is included there.
What would the return? Okay.
And then the $90,000 increase, what,
The $90,000 was one data. If you look at the list that of cuts, I took out $71,000 from somewhere because she was budgeted in this code instead of the one that I cut. If you look at the top sheet, there's a data analyst, $71,000 that was cut. That has now been included in this number. That's why you see it here.
plus 20,000?
Last year, BOCES had our Sentinel-1 antivirus under a different line. They moved it to this line. It's out of our control.
What are they, we said again? What is
Our
it?
Sentinel-1, it's our endpoint virus protection for
Okay.
all the computers. It's approximately 50,000 a year. So that was in one code. BOCES moved it to a different code this year. So
It
that's,
all rolls up into the same code at the bottom? Wow.
Go ahead.
The district-wide computer software for music, we haven't used it. It's $6,000. Do you want to just keep it in case? Or can we?
we use that. That's, they have software that they use every year. Depending on if we have to expand the licenses, we
Okay.
kept that in there in case they needed more.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on this page? We'll go to the next page. We're on page 48. Just go back to the mic, please. Thank you.
These are all services that we get directly from BOCES.
Can you explain, second from the top, why such a big jump for this year?
Yes, this is for Chromebook purchases, learning resources. This is from, we are ordering about $140,000 of new Chromebook. This is something that we always, it's Chromebooks, we keep buying Chromebooks because they have a life cycle. So every year, and we are going away from the lease. We used to lease them, and it doesn't make sense to be leasing them every year. So we are now going into purchasing them every year so we don't have to incur the lease expenses on the Chromebook. So from now on, will be buying them directly, because anytime we go through BOSIs, even though we get BOSIs A and we lease them, there are financing charges, and we want to avoid that.
I'm sorry, so that's only a fraction of Chromebooks. I'd like to understand better that lease versus the purchase, because it seems like with the lease, we have more support on technical issues.
Mm-mm.
We still have, whether we purchase it or lease it, we still have technical support from BOSIs if needed. And we do buy the Chromebook insurance. So also from BOSIs. So if there's a problem with any of the Chromebook, we send it to BOSIs. A vendor who has signed up with BOSIs to fix it for the kids. You want to add to it?
So yes, in the past, the district has leased, say we approximately get 1,500 Chromebooks per year. But for that 5-year lease, you're paying $20,000 to $25,000 in finance charges every year. So this year, trying to save money, we're purchasing 300 Chromebooks direct, which will cover us for the year. We have Chromebooks for the incoming 6th graders already put aside. We get the returning seniors Chromebooks that we use for parts or replacements for lost or stolen. And then we have these 300 additional Chromebooks that we'll purchase direct. So working with Olivia, just trying to cut out the finance charges this year. We're still purchasing $140,000 through BOSI, so we still get the state aid on that, but you're not paying $20,000 in finance charges for the next 5 years.
Wow.
I will
Okay.
comment too, if you don't mind. In that same budget line, it also increased because currently our servers are hosted on what's known as VMware. VMware was purchased and bought out by a company called Broadcom. For the last 2 years, we've been struggling with licenses. It's just like every other school district on Long Island. It was a big topic of conversation at Western Suffolk BOCES the other day at a model schools meeting I was at. We got lucky. We got our licensing renewed using funds from last year, so it didn't impact our line this year because we had already had it set aside. But in the meantime, we've made a decision, like, again, most districts, we're going to start migrating to Azure, Microsoft Azure versus VMware. It's another cloud-hosted solution instead of what we have now. The other reason VMware pricing has escalated significantly. Some school districts have seen almost $30,000, $40,000 in price increase, whereas Azure, you kind of put in what you want. So we're estimating about $50,000 right now so we could build our servers in their storage facility in cloud-based, migrate our data to those devices, but then that cuts out our need for VMware. So this year we didn't spend the money that we allocated for VMware because we used last year's funds. And now that we're allocating that plus the Azure money for next year, that's what shows a little increase, well, an increase in this code planning ahead for that. We also have data core devices, which are our main storage units of all the data for the district. They're becoming end of life in the next year. So we're also trying to race against time to replace those before we have problems.
That's all in that second line,
Yeah.
learning resources. And you had said on the previous page that was the Chromebook insurance was under the LAN network support, but the cost of the Chromebooks is under the media learning resources. Did I hear that correctly?
BOSIs actually specify the COSA that we have to use because they use it for stated purposes. And these are the COSAs. These numbers, let me go back here. Wow. They are under 20. These are the COSAs. And we have to budget it under those codes. And it's very interesting because they keep on changing it on us because it depends on the group, the team that is working on it at BOSIS as well. So they keep on changing it and we have to change accordingly because of the state aid. They have to calculate the state aid and send it to the state.
Also, if
thank
I
you.
just may add in that code, and you can elaborate further, is the Go Guardian Chromebook monitoring
Correct.
software, and also the CyberNut Know Before.
Yes, that one's all under the 14, the 5014, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Go Guardian, our smartboard learning suite that the teachers use for smart software. Our CyberNut, which is our cybersecurity anti-phishing training for the staff. We're in the process of rolling that out and using it right now. That's mandated by New York State every year to provide training for the staff. Our Apple management software that manages all the iPads is involved in that. Like I mentioned, Azure, and then also our yearly support for, we have what's known as centripetal devices that work in tandem with our firewalls, and it monitors all the ingoing, outgoing traffic of the network, and then it can shield or block, bad stuff like on the fly. So that's all included in the code. Thank you, Thomas.
So oh, I
Yeah, go
don't
ahead.
have it in front of me. Chris has it in front of me, but I thought there was a deduction towards the technology improvement plan. Can you speak to that? What was that? I'm just curious, what, because that would be a future thing? Is it in there? Was it $65,000 or something? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'd have to look on my computer.
Just go to the mic for me. Thank you.
This is the code that, trustee Megan Messman is talking about. We cut it down to 25,000 and it's on the list.
I'm not sure. I can't really see the screen. I
Is
can't-
that referring the deferral of the technology plan to 2026?
Yes.
That's what I'm
because the
questioning.
technology
Okay.
plan is deferred to 2026, so we don't need it this year. So we cut it back to
But what does
25,000.
that mean? What do you mean? What are we deferring?
Okay,
Because it
we are
sounds like we have a lot of technology.
we are supposed to come up with a technology plan, and that's what the basis for, for planning purposes. And
Okay,
every 5 years,
I see.
and we don't have to put up a new one until 2026.
Okay,
So we reduce the budget line.
okay, understood. Thank you. Sorry for the confusing question.
Oh, no, that's fine. Thank you.
It was on the list of
Yeah. I
the
think so.
2.3.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
I think it was, yeah.
yes, thank you.
Can we go on to page 49?
Think we are done with technology.
We're done with technology at this point. So we're going to page 50, ladies and gentlemen. On page 50. Any
The
questions?
the middle school attendance teacher, are we adding a position?
We are not adding a position. What happened last year was that there were changes made by the board last minute. There was a recommendation that was made, and then it was changed last minute. So we had to retain this budget for 24-25. So it's because the 24-25 budget was actually reduced. That person was reinstated full-time equivalent. They were going to cut the FTE back, but it was reinstated last minute. So this person is now in as one FTE.
So our actual expenditure this year should end up more like what we're budgeting for next year?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
Can I-
questions on the page?
Can I understand the importance of the attendance teacher because I thought, so don't we get the automated that my kid's absent through Parent Square now?
Dr. Talbot? Or-
So the automated message that notify parents of their students' tardy or absence.
I guess if you fail to call the offense, yes, you get
Yes.
like the notice.
Yes.
Yes, it goes through.
But the attendance teacher's
Happened to
role,
me.
extends beyond that. As we were talking earlier about PINs, that person
Okay.
initiates PINs, deals with the chronic absenteeism, severe absenteeism, is a part of the school-based attendance teams that reach out along with the family liaisons, the social workers, the counselors to the families' homes. That's the person that takes the lead in following up on those attendance-related matters.
Any other questions?
Thank you for expanding on.
We're going to go to page 51. Any questions on page 51? No questions on 51? 52? For supplies? Nope. I'm gonna go to page 53.
I have a question. Third from the bottom,
On 53?
yeah, 53. Wide fluctuations from year to year. Could you speak to that?
Is third from the bottom?
Yeah.
The district-wide, it looks like professional health services.
Yeah, this is additional nurses that we need, substitute nurses. We had, this was COVID time, 159. Is that what you are talking about? The
Yeah, it just
fluctuation?
159, then down almost by half, and then
Correct.
up by a lot,
We're
and then
trying-
down and up.
And
like-
if you look here, what we have been trying to do, and Dr. Wade helped me out here, we've been bringing in part-time nurses to do the coverages
Mhm.
during the day. So we used to use nurses that we hired from agencies. We are now bringing in our own people because it's more efficient that way.
Mhm.
They move from building to cover lunches. And when one of the nurses is out, we use our own employee
Mhm.
to fill the spot. So we find that to be much more efficient. Plus, the benefit of that is that they know the kids.
Mhm. Okay,
It's-
thank you.
Can I piggyback on that? So since last year, we only spent 73,000, and to this point this year, we've only spent 30. Do we still need to budget for 115,000?
I will look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on page 53? Page 54?
Yes, second from the bottom, health services for other districts.
Yeah.
We haven't spent anything to date this year, but it's a big chunk of money to budget for, so.
They actually, because it's based on attendance. This is kids who are enrolled, our kids who are enrolled in other school districts, private and parochial schools.
Mhm.
The school district where they are located, the school district of location bills the school district of resident for all the health services, psychological, nurses, and all that.
Does
But
it
they
come in
have-
at the end of the
Yes,
year?
you have been seeing
Okay.
all the consultant agreements that have been coming in. It comes towards the end of the year because they have to make sure that the kids are in attendance
Okay.
throughout the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this page? Page 55?
Yes. At the middle school, psychologist salaries was increasing to 120,000. But then on the new budget, it's increasing still, but only by 55,000.
Yes, there was a position that I had to move around in the new budget. Because at the time that I was doing the budget, there was one teacher that was replacing the other, one psychologist that was replacing the other, and I made a mistake of using the two names, so I took one out.
Okay, and one more, for the high school and the middle school, it's such a drastic difference is there more psychologists in the middle school?
No, it's employee specific, but I'll double check the names again and see how much we projected for each of them.
So how many psychologists are there in the middle school?
Let me see what I have. Yes, let me see what I have here.
So I'm sure it's more than one person.
Yes,
at the middle school.
it's more than one. And a good, let me take that back. Because the psychologists who are assigned to the people personnel services are located at the middle school, they are included in that code. So that code looks like it has more people because those are not assigned specifically to the middle school, but because they are people personnel services, and that department is located at the middle school, we combine them in that code. So it looks as if the middle school has more psychologists. No, two of them in fact, do not report to the middle school principal. They are part of people personnel services.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions on page 55? 56? Any questions on 56? Can I go to 57? Or we? I'm going to 57.
Yes, the big jump in co-curricular supervision for the middle school and the high school, is that for bringing back clubs?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on page 57? We're going to page 58. Any questions on page 58? Chris?
Yes. The athletic supplies increase, is that anything due to the mascot change? Or is that just
No, it's
equipment
uniforms. It's uniforms.
that
have
we
the
would already be
uniforms.
ordering, or ones that we're ordering because the mascot changed? Okay.
Ones we will be ordering because of the mascot change.
Okay.
I have a question on the middle school and high school game supervision. Are we over budgeting?
Game supervision.
Yeah, last year it was just taking the middle school, we budgeted 47,000, 2 years ago, 47,000. Last year, this year, we budgeted 80,000. We spent 26,000. If we double it.
Most of that expense occur at the end of the year. Either middle of the year and some of them, this is where we get timesheets at the end of the year. There's a lot of expenditure that occur between May and June and July, as a matter of fact.
And the
So,
same controls are in place that were implemented last year.
correct.
But it's still a big jump to go from like 2 years ago. I know this year is still outstanding, so we don't know what this year is going to be, but 2 years ago, like taking the high school, it was 134, and now we're budgeting 200,000. Does it really need to go up by that much?
Game supervision. Look at what in the 22-23 school year,
Yeah.
you see we
134.
spent 244,000. And
That's
then
not
we
what-
cut back. And it's going back up. Game supervision. It all depends on what happens. But it's something that I would go back and discuss it with the director of that department to see whether we can cut back a little bit on that.
Yeah, like maybe we were overstaffing
Correct.
2 years ago, and then we got it on track, and now we're getting
Correct.
off
We'll,
again.
we'll discuss that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 58? 59? 60?
This is all the transportation, where we are reflecting the increase in transportation. But as soon as the RFP is released and we get a result, we would know exactly what to do with this code.
So this may change
This may change,
drastically.
yes, before budget adoption.
Right, but right now you have it on, the high end right now, correct?
Yes, because transportation budget you have to be careful, because if you overspend your transportation budget, you can pull in any lines from other codes. Transportation, you have to stay within the transportation budget. The law doesn't allow us to bring in monies from other code into transportation. You can decrease it, but you can increase it.
Can you
Go ahead.
remind us of the RFP timeline?
We sent it back to council today
Okay.
to review, and it will be We put the ad in the papers. It's going to be published next week. And as soon as we see that it's in the papers, we will send it out to vendors.
And is it like a 6-week window to respond, 4 weeks?
I think we're going to make it a little shorter, about
Mhm.
4 weeks. Within 4 weeks, we should know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, for the field trips, I know that those are built in there because we're hopefully gonna have them. And they were built into the current budget because we can't, if it can be moved out, but it can't be moved in. Just wondering what you're basing the numbers off of, because like the middle school field trips, 22, 23, I'm assuming maybe because of following COVID, it was lower, but it was 10,000. Last year, it was 5,200. And then we approved 13,000, but now it's getting budgeted for 32,000. And then the high school is getting budgeted for 46,000.
Yes. Oh, Dr.
So-
Talbot is going to take that.
Yeah, 'cause I was just asking, I think some of these trips in 23, 24 were grant funded, but I'll give it to Dr. Talbot. Go ahead.
That's absolutely correct. Field trips were heavily supported through the grant funds. And now that those have waned off, the general fund will need to carry those fully.
So what about the 22, 23? Were those also grant funded? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm just wondering, because it's still a drastic number between those 2 years. Okay.
So, to ask further then, do we have the other half of the field trip costs in the budget, or are we just? So, right, this is just transportation for field trips, but where do we have actually the costs to go on field trips?
Yeah, what do you mean is, the gate, if there's any
Admission.
admission and
Yes,
all
thank
that,
you.
it's usually budgeted in the, building code. Because that's not transportation. We only take transportation from here. Although transportation usually is the highest cost. Transportation is more expensive than sometimes the admission fees.
So is it in the budget for next
Yes,
year?
yes,
Is
yes.
it, and it's one trip per grade?
We're
or is it-
planning, Mary, we're planning about 2 trips next year instead of 1. Yes.
Chris, sorry.
Yeah, and the middle school field trips, so were those also grant funded?
Last year, most of it was grant funded,
Okay.
but we have to, all the grants have expired, so we
Right.
have to now take it up.
Any other questions on this page? 61, I don't think there's anything on 61. Anything on 62? Going to 63?
Wait, I'm sorry, back on
62.
62.
62, sorry.
Nothing's budgeted for summer camps?
Yes, we had summer camp, it was taken over by the grants. I don't know whether we will be doing them, but if anything at all, we expect the grants to pick it up this summer,
Okay.
right? Yes.
We do still have money in our RECOTS grant, so we plan to do our summer enrichment programs through the RECOTS grant.
That includes breakfast and lunch also under
It-
that grant?
Not included in the grant, but the summer feeding program would cover
They
that.
will. Okay, thank you.
63?
Yes. On the health insurance line, the bottom line,
Yeah.
last budget, last copy that we had, it was increasing by 684,000, but now it's only increasing by 556. Was
Yes,
there a
we-
retirement?
Because when we cut the positions, we also cut the health insurance. If you go to the yellow sheet that I sent you, the last 3 lines or 4 lines, there is a line, about 4 of them, 3 of them include health insurance, $32,000 apiece for family coverage. See it?
Okay,
See it?
so all that large amount of health insurance
Yes.
change was just one person?
No, about three.
Oh, three people through that one employee?
No,
No,
three employees, positions that will be eliminated.
It's on the bottom?
It's towards the bottom.
It's not all in one line. It's multiple lines.
oh, okay.
Yeah, there's one for 30, the
Yeah, yeah.
last one is 32.
Yeah,
and
don't
then-
read them.
last
Don't,
one is-
yeah, yeah.
The last one is 32, then you see another 32, another 32. That's for four
Okay,
positions.
now I see. I thought it was all in
No,
one
no, no.
area.
Because we have to go back to health insurance code and cut it. That's what we did.
Can I go to 64? $65?
This is debt service.
Yes.
This is all you. This is the library debt, the 598,000. This is a projected amortization. No, this is real amortization for the library debt. And it's a pass through, the district pays for it, and the library will reimburse us. If you go to the top page, you saw a revenue interfund transfer. I had $1,169,000. This piece is included there. Because we'll be getting it back from the library. We paid and they give us back the money.
But when it comes back for the following year budget?
No,
And we're gonna-
same year.
We're gonna same year, okay.
And these are the principal and interest costs for the 2016 bond primarily. The 2.2 million and the $2.3 million here.
You mean, it has here 2019, do you mean?
Correct. Because the money, for the 2016 bond,
Right.
the monies were borrowed over three. We went through about two phases.
Mhm.
The first phase was about 53 million, and the second phase was about $12 million. So each of them has its own amortization schedule.
Okay. Can we go to 66?
56. This is interest on tax anticipation notes, $700,000. And this is the energy performance contract, the prior energy performance contract. That's the interest and the lease expense, principal and financing cost of the energy performance contract. Then we are required to fund 20% of summer school, July and August summer school. This is the estimated cost of district share or summer program for 6-week special education program are funded by the state at 80%, including the cost of transportation. But the other 20% has to come from the district. And this is the 20% that the district has to pay towards summer school program for special education kids who have a 12-month IEP.
Ms.
Any other
Kowalski,
question? Go ahead.
yeah, going back up to the TANs, do you anticipate us needing one for this year?
Rates have been, I haven't seen interest rate. It goes with the market. I don't think, this is a projection, of course, but I don't think we will need more because our fund balance situation is getting a little better.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this page?
I have other questions, but not on that page.
So I think we went through the entire line by line, but right, anything else that you have for us? Because I think there may be some general questions that some of the board members may have.
I think
Yes.
we'll go back to, there were about 4 areas that were identified. We will look through that, and if there's any cuts that we can make, that will increase our 2.3 to, it will increase it further. And this will make it very good for the budget,
Okay,
whilst we wait for state aid to be released.
I think there's some general questions, but I don't know if you want to sit down and then you can answer the
But
question.
I would love to see
Okay.
them.
Okay. Okay.
Go ahead,
So
Megan.
again, I don't have my printout that's some do. But there was some indication of cutting back on the mentoring program, so can you?
No, it wasn't cutting back. I realized that it was budgeted in another place, so I took one out.
Okay. And also building level leaders,
Same thing,
oh, so it was in the wrong line?
correct. And I moved it and I cut it back.
You moved it and you cut it back, but it's not eliminated.
No, we have a budget line for it.
Okay.
So if I may,
but-
at the March
yes.
1st meeting, additional services was highlighted.
Correct.
And so when we researched what was actually contained in that line item, it was a duplication
Correct.
of the building levels and mentors. So it's removed, but the positions are not eliminated because they are budgeted elsewhere.
Correct.
Okay. And I guess earlier in the year, we were talking about, I forget the name of your plan. I guess I don't think it's your professional development plan. Mary's shaking her head. She knows what I'm going for. But for the second and third year mentors, is that still in the budget?
So I think it's currently still in the budget, the professional development plan, we are working on, and we do have recommendations for shifting that. But I do think the full amount is still in the budget.
Correct.
So you have recommendations to change the plan, but it's not reflected in the budget?
Correct. We have not completed our plan or presented it to you yet.
When would that be? I'm assuming we want to get it correct in the budget, right? Since we're looking for a lot of savings here? Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay, maybe.
So the mentoring program is budgeted for 25-26 as it stands.
Okay,
And the Professional Development Committee are actually going through and crafting, reviewing the plan. And so once we hear all of those recommendations, the rationale, and I know that we were also looking at refining roles and responsibilities. So all of that's underway. And then for 26-27, we will be recommending a change. As of right now, it's in the budget.
oh, so the recommended change would not be effective for next year, even though we have a lot of money to find in our budget.
So the plan is due April. The plan is due April. So we should have that recommendation by then.
So we could potentially consider including it for next year.
Could potentially considering it.
Okay.
It's, in the past, it has been a collaborative effort with the educators, administrators, hashing that out and what it would look like. So we do want to make sure we receive that in totality so we can bring
Right.
it back to
Right,
you.
right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we move forward on the community input on agenda items?
Yes, wondering if we're expecting an impact from Title I funding.
From federal grants.
I was also listening to the news this afternoon. I hope not.
Don't we all?
But didn't you say that was a different fund?
Yes,
It's
it
the
was,
F fund.
it's a different fund, the F fund.
So it's the
But,
F fund.
you know, the news came out today regarding the title and the IDEA funds. So we haven't received anything from the state yet because all those funding are passed through from the feds to the state to us. We haven't received any news that it will be cut.
So.
Say if that is cut, does that impact state funding?
Yes, because it's a, you know, the state receives it and passes it to us. If they cut it at the federal level, it will affect what the state receives.
I mean, does it impact any of the money that the state, say there, whatever the amount that the state is?
No, the state, federal funding makes up only 10% of our monies. The rest of it, the 90% comes from the state. And we have not heard anything that the state is going to reduce state aid
Okay.
in line with the federal.
So whatever
federal
that
government.
90% is, shouldn't change based on whatever Title
Not
I
to my
is.
knowledge, not
Okay.
to what I've been listening to or reading.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so at this point in time, we will take community input on agenda items. So that's from the budget presentation, the transportation presentation, and anything that's on there related to the district clerk agreement and use of facilities.
Good evening, everyone. Madeline Quintine Mathani. Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Yes.
Lynn, it's the 15-second one, the 15-minute. Yeah, so just stop that one. And go ahead.
You ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, I didn't know that y'all had started a little earlier. So you may have answered these questions already. So if you did, just let me know. Now, how many students do we transport to St. Martin's that do not meet the mileage requirement? So if you can't answer it now, just at least take the question and get back to me. So
We'll take the
I don't know if
question.
y'all said anything about that
No, there's
before
not.
I came in.
We'll take the question.
Sure. So how many students do we transport to St. Martin's that do not meet the mileage requirement? That's number one. And number two, do we transport to private schools beyond the 15-mile limit? And if so, how many? And I also just want to say, I didn't hear y'all say anything about it, but the community is still in support of Northeast schools staying open. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank
All
you.
right? And I just need those two questions answered.
Just pause, yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Todd Bryce. I'm a parent of two Chaminade students. I think you also have some other parents in the audience. This is all news to me that we're looking to cut the transportation to private schools. I actually learned about this on Facebook last night. So, I get a lot of notices from, when to vote, when to pay taxes and stuff like that. But if we're looking to cut this, these boys have, all of them that gotten into Chaminade had a lot of choices. Some of them are just starting as freshmen next year. A lot of those choices were made around what kind of transportation they would have to the school, right? Mine certainly were. I'm a single parent, so I certainly rely on transportation. I would say, if you look at the math of this, just by doing a Google search sitting here, and this was all extremely informative, you have like 2,700 students in Amityville, I think, somewhere around there. Got a $122 million budget. That's $45,000 per student per year that you spend. I would guess In Amityville, you probably have about 500 or so private school kids. You know, you're spending, you're getting that money for free. It's the way I see it. I haven't sent my kids to Amityville. I don't think many of them that go to private school have. So, you know, that money is, if all these kids went back to Amityville school, you guys would probably have to spend another $22 million. Sure, you're spending $2.2 million to transport our kids to another school. That's a deal, all right? And if we're gonna cut this out, you can't do this right now. You gotta give us some time, right? You gotta give kids time to, parents time to figure out, hey, I'm not gonna go send my kid to Chaminade because there's no longer a bus there, right? We're gonna end up sending our kids on the train or something like that, or driving them. That's a huge inconvenience, okay? Most of these kids, they do take the train home. It's a little easier for us to pick them all up in the afternoon or something like that. But to delay getting to work because I gotta make a 40-minute, and yes, it's 40-minute drive to Farmingdale and back to drop my kids off, is it's an exorbitant kind of a time expense on a lot of parents. Make a deal with us if you're gonna cut it, all right? Give us a morning bus. Do something. Subsidize our train pass, right? We're all gonna now have to pick up a, you know, $150 monthly train pass, right? Now, I see this as like maybe a $4,500 expenditure per kid, 2.2 million, 500 kids. You guys know the math. I'm sure it's more than 500 kids, by the way. You know, $4,400 per kid. I'm spending more on that at lunch at this school. So, you know, make a deal with us so that we're not inconvenienced by doing this. These are great kids. They go into a phenomenal school. Don't hamstring them by cutting out the transportation that they've had for a number of years, allowing us parents to send them to a school that, you know, isn't as you know, convenient as coming to Amityville or something like that. You know, it's not the difference of taking a kid that lives in South Amityville or something and turning them into a walker. and
I'm
making them
sorry,
go
I'm
to-
gonna have to, if you can just wrap up your comments because
that's it.
the buzzer went off, but it didn't go off.
That's it.
But thank you. We heard
Thank
your
you, Mr.
comment
Bright.
and we'll be in touch with, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I just need clarification. Have we already decided to send pre-K, kindergarten to pre-K next year in Northeast? Has that been decided? I
Dr.
just need
Talbot.
clarification.
Dr. Talbot.
Because the last time we spoke, it was not decided.
So the
So I was
final,
surprised to hear that tonight.
so that is the proposal. That has always been the proposal within the last couple of months. But April will be the final decisions prior to the board adopting the budget. We are hoping to hear, by that time, we will have the legislative numbers and we'll have heard from our local legislators regarding the $2 million funding for Northeast.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank, Lynn. So when she's talking, just pause those buttons. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Margaret Shaw from Amityville. Question on the comment from Ms. Boazzi regarding the summer school expenditures. And then you mentioned it includes transportation that was paid by the state.
Yes.
So what's the $160,000 that's listed in the summer school busing pamphlet, deck here? What's that?
That is part of the expenses. Do you want to talk about the summer school? This is not the summer school expenses for special education kids. The one we are talking about is other summer school programs. The one that I was talking about was for kids who are classified 12-month IEP. Those are the ones that the state
They
pick
pays
up.
for.
The state picks up 80%.
And the 160 represents what?
Other summer school program that we have in district.
That's not special needs or?
That's no special need.
Okay,
Yes.
what is your competition do in summer school busing? Because I remember growing up and there was never a summer school bus ever. Ever. That was part of the punishment for having to go to summer school.
But I think,
What does
But said
Copeg
they
do? Do they
can
have
do
summer
summer
school buses? I'm asking you, what our neighboring districts do as far as summer school buses? Are there?
We provide buses for summer programs here in Amityville School District. I don't know what other school districts do.
When you say summer programs, do you mean summer school? Do you mean summer
Summer
camp? Do you
school,
mean
Summer
summer?
camp.
it's summer
Those are
enrichment
the ones
programs.
that we are
all the
talking about.
summer-
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, what do our neighbors do? Did they provide school busing for those like programs?
We'll
I
find
have
out.
to check out and we have to investigate it and get back to you.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other question I had was regarding the budget, because when at the last meeting, we talked about the gift of 2 million or whatever. So what happens when they decide that they don't want to come back to the plate to save Amityville again? What happens? What's the contingency plan? Because you have it in the budget as you're going to get this gift from heaven above to get this going, but what happens if it doesn't come? You're counting your chickens before they hatch. And you've learned that lesson because you paid salaries out of grants, you paid salaries out of COVID money. Like, you got to learn your lesson eventually, because we're in a school, so you learn, but it doesn't seem like anyone's learning from the fact that you're counting your chickens before they hatch, hoping to God that you get this 2 million. So what happens when it doesn't? My question to you is, what happens if it doesn't come to fruition? What's the contingency plan other than taxing your community?
Dr. Talbot, I think you did address it already, but go ahead.
So there are several options that could take place. The board could opt to pierce the cap. There will be option 2, would certainly be additional cuts.
So you're going to cut more staff then?
Do you have another recommendation?
Yeah, better budgeting. But, and the other question was to the gentleman, the statement that I had regarding the busing. Is all parochial school, high schools being canceled off this
No,
thought process, or you're just zeroing in on Chaminade?
no.
And St. Dominic.
So can you talk about that? Because if the rumors are swirling about just one school or parochial schools or high schools, or the clarity and transparency that we expect hasn't come forth. So if you can speak to that, I don't know if you're talking about.
So
it when
Ms.
you do
Sheff,
the
that was a
presentation.
conversation that did take place a little bit earlier that Dr. Talbot did
Oh,
explain
Okay.
that
Sorry
if
for
there
that.
were students that were past the schools that were past the 15-mile limit, that they're not supposed to get busing, but she also mentioned that if it was more than 3 years, that you can explain that. She
I'm
did,
sorry,
she did explain everything that already in regards to that, so.
So would you send me an email to recap that for me?
No, I
or-
can recap it for
So
you.
so
Thank
recap
you.
right now.
So public schools are authorized to provide private school transportation up to a 15-mile radius. If it exceeds 15 miles, then we are not authorized to provide it. In the case where a district has provided that transportation for around 3 years, you can opt to secure a pickup point, a mutual pickup point that is within the 15-mile radius.
Okay.
And so those are the discussions that we are having as to how we can support our community at large, as well as balance our budget fiscally. So
Okay.
that's under discussion.
That's a great option and great solution, so I applaud that. And I also want to point out that I was one of the few parents that actually got the Chaminade bus back in 2019, and my son was a senior, so I didn't really have that much skin in the game because I did it for the future. Because here we are paying taxes, and the least we could do is get a bus. So if we're not sending our kids to the school because of the what we want out of it, then at least we should get a bus. So that being said, but I also want to point out is Sacred Heart Academy, another parochial school, which is in very close proximity to Chaminade. So you might consider sharing the bus between the two schools and having one bus. It doesn't have to be a Sacred Heart bus and it doesn't have to be a Chaminade bus. It could be one, and that would be another cost savings.
Thank you. So the timer went off.
I
Thank you.
know. Thank
Thank
you.
Shared
you.
services were discussed earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really quick, just a couple questions. What's the total amount of students that are in the district in total that are going to Amityville and also not going to Amityville? Like roundabout number, I think you said about 2,400,
Over
2,700?
closer to 2,800.
So about 1,500 are going in district. I mean, how many students are in the district going to Amityville schools? But how many are going out of district? I'm trying to
How
figure out
how many? Olivia, is your microphone still live? Go ahead.
And another question, I've heard this before. What's the amount that the students get or that the school gets per student going to in-town schooling? It was always like $20,000. Somebody mentioned at a meeting last year. Is that correct?
I think what you are referring to is how much we pay to charter schools. And the charter school is about 21,000. What they take from our state aid to give to charter schools is about 21,000 this year, 21,300.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So,
Thank you. Just hold on a second. I think we don't, on the agenda right now, we don't have community input on non-agenda items. No. What I was gonna say, because I know the time is getting ready to go off. Is the board okay if we just extend the community input on the agenda items and non-agenda for like another 10 minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on a second. Can you just, you just change the timer for 10 minutes? Reset it for just 10. Thank you. Go ahead.
Kia Wolf, President, Amityville Teachers Association, 100 Avalon Court. Transportation, obviously, a huge thing, and that has to do with the in and out of school district students. I think that it's a very difficult thing for us to start thinking about students not being able to get that transportation going to and from school because we are impacting the very community that it is that we're trying to serve. I do want to make sure that when we are, whatever considerations it is that we are going to be making going forward with transportation, that whatever decisions that we make are equitable. The whole thing came up about the whole 3 miles and going to that mainly impacted the students that were going to our schools. So I think that we need to look at transportation as a whole to make sure that we can still provide that service to all of the members of the community, especially for the ones that go to our school and for those who have had a history of us being able to provide that service. When you start looking at transportation, working families and all the rest of those things, how it's impacted, who are also going to be responsible for our budget, I think is very important that we are able to continue to provide that service for them. The extra cost as it relates to the transportation increase, I know that's something that the district has to heavily consider, but I think that we also have to consider making sure that all of our students in the Amityville community are able to get the necessary busing to make sure that they are able to receive the academic services that they need to move forward and become continue to become scholars, whether it's in and out of our school district. Unless we can bring them back, which we would love to, we still need to make sure that we are providing those services equally for all of our members. So whatever it is for all of our communities. So whatever concessions it is that we're thinking about making, let's make it across the board, but I'm hoping that we'll still be able to find a way to make sure that everybody receives those services.
Thank you.
Stephanie Andrews, Amityville. First, I don't know if I'm talking too loud because
No, you're fine.
sounds different here. But is there some reason why that speaker can't be made louder and those speakers put in the front, like I mentioned the last meeting? Because I can barely hear. I know a lot of other people can't hear, and it doesn't really help the public when you think we could hear what you're saying, but we really can't.
Okay.
So if we could get that corrected, if he could make it louder, and I know he doesn't make it loud because he's worried about feedback because he's behind the mics. He needs to be in front of the mics, which is what I said the last time. The second thing I want to bring up is there, forget about the 2 million requested from our elected official, again, a gift. Well, I was at the last board meeting. We were short 2.4 million before that, right? So we were almost short $4 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I thought. The funds requested from, I think it was Kimberly Jean-Pierre got us the money the last time.
Yes.
It's listed in your current budget.
Yes.
So there's no guarantee we're getting that. So all these cuts you talked about don't even take into account that 2 million. Is that what you're just saying?
Yes.
Mrs. Blatzy? So we have to come up with another two, the board has to come up with another 2 million.
Yes. If we don't get an increase in state aid.
And remember, it was a gift the last time. I find it hard to believe after we were warned the last time from improper budgeting that we're going to be given another gift for improper budgeting, because that's how this shortfall happens. It doesn't happen because all of a sudden 1,000 kids moved into the district. The library interfund transfers that is mentioned on page A2. The library is a separate budget, is it not?
The library has its own budget.
Correct.
But in this particular instance, because the title to the land on which the title to the land on which the library is built belongs to the school district, they cannot go out there and borrow money themselves. So
Correct.
we are borrowing money for them. They'll pay us, but we have to pay the debt, and then they'll give us the money
Right,
back.
right. And it was a bond, correct?
Yes, there was a
And a
bond.
bond is very specific on what it could be spent on. It can't be spent on outside that, that was voted on by the public.
Correct.
I
That is
would
the
think
library
the lawyer's
bond.
not here, right? The lawyer is not here?
No.
I think we need a legal opinion on whether you could actually transfer those monies from the library budget, which is from a bond, which is very specific under the law.
No, they are not transferring the money from the bond. The bond that they floated
Yes.
will be used for the renovation of the Amityville Public Library. They are not transferring
So
the
you're
money.
not, that's not more
That's
money
not where
moving
they are
on.
getting
That's
the
just a
money from.
normal budget. It should have been in.
Correct. It's,
Just
they'll
to
be,
show, all right.
they'll be
okay.
getting it from the
All right,
normal
as long as we're
budget
not
and give it to us.
Page A2 also speaks about non-resident tuition. What is the non-resident tuition to go here?
Foster children.
Well,
When
the
there's a
tuition is per child. So what
Yes.
is the non-resident tuition?
When a kid is in
No, no,
our,
I know what it is.
yes.
But how much money?
We are getting about $400,000 now.
No, per child.
Non-resident, it depends. If the kid is classified, the state gives us a worksheet. If the kid is classified, it goes out. There's a weighting that is used. If the kid is a regular education kid, it is much, much
All right,
lower.
but they're for non-residents. That means they don't belong in the Amityville School District. Is that
But
what-
we are allowed to, if they are here as non-resident, then we use the non-resident
They're
tuition rate.
here as non-residents because they choose to be here or because they were placed here.
They may be placed here by social
But
services.
what I'm asking, maybe I need to be more specific, I'm sorry. Nobody is anybody asking to send their child here. And I'm not talking about homeless. I'm not talking about placed by DSS. I'm talking about someone who decides they want to use this district, which is allowed under the law. If
No,
the
it's
board
not.
approves it, if the board approves it.
Of course, yes.
Right, it is allowed under the law. You don't have any of those type of students, correct?
Well, if the board, if a kid say is in their senior year and the board decide to allow them to attend school year, here we have one or two.
Oh, if they're in their senior year, the law allows it. The board
Yes.
doesn't get to allow it. The
Yes.
law allows it. You
But
can't
what you
force
are
the-
saying
I'm
is-
talking about, let's say I live in Copeg and I like this basketball team, which somebody tried that once. I want my kid to come here. They're not entitled to come here.
They are
Are
not.
we allowing any of those kids to come here?
No.
To the best of my knowledge, we don't allow them, but if we know they are here and they are non-resident, we have to investigate it.
Right.
And send them an exclusion
Okay,
letter.
just want to make sure that's not
Stephanie?
going.
Stephanie?
Okay.
Stephanie, I'm sorry, your time ran out.
I still have something very important to ask.
All right,
about the
but can I
district clerk.
have you come back? Could you?
All right,
sorry,
I'll
you-
come back.
Thank you. I'll let someone else come up. Go ahead. Lynn, do me a favor, just move that time back to like maybe 4 minutes because we weren't turning it on and off at the right time. No, I was saying to Lynn to turn the timer back like 4 minutes because we weren't turning it on and off at the right. Yeah, that's perfect, yeah. Thank you, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eric Romanishin. I have 2 kids in St. Martin Tours and 1 currently going to St. Dominic's. I end up here and I rushed down here because I heard there is a potential proposal that she will be losing her bus. My concern comes into not just the fact that she's my daughter on this, is also her and a couple of her friends had also just been at Our Lady of Mercy, which that school closed after her freshman year. And now, after her sophomore year, she is full concern on how we're going to handle getting her to her current school. I know there's at least 4 other families whose children go to St. Dominic. And it was chosen as a potential school because the bus went there. I don't want her to just change schools, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure she could stay there. I think it's unfair to the parents who've made decisions based off of where the buses go. It's fine to me if they say, starting next year, any new students will no longer be going there. It gives parents a chance to plan, but to just cut it off hurts parents trying to make decisions, find the best decisions they can for the kids. That's all.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. Stephanie, you're back.
Stephanie Andrews. Okay, so on page 2, the district clerk. District clerk's a full-time position in this district now, right?
Yes.
Why are we hiring a consultant to help with the election? The district clerk should be able to handle that. They always did.
So,
And this is not her first year?
this is, the district clerk just started here in January. The district clerk just started here in January, has never worked as a district clerk. And she's never been a district clerk any other place. So the consultant will be allowed to assist her as needed, and that's what we're doing as a consultant.
Oh, it was my understanding she was the district clerk. Already, this is her second year, no?
No,
Okay,
no,
then
she
my
just started
mistake.
January of this year.
My mistake, my
Mhm.
mistake. Sorry about that. The geese. This is a pet peeve for me.
All of us.
The geese are ineffective. Anything you're gonna do is ineffective. You think the village does anything down by the beach and the fields? No. Nobody's doing anything over the Field of Dreams in Nassau County. It makes somebody a lot of money, having a dog run around, but that's about it. Those geese ain't stupid. That's why they come back. They know when the dog's there, they leave. So I think you should just eliminate that as a matter of principle.
Okay.
The summer camp, I know there's nothing in that budget line. Could you tell me what that summer camp is and whose is it? There's nothing in it. You didn't put in it. You
I
didn't
think-
fund it. But I just want to know what summer camp we would eventually, at one point, we're talking about.
Mary?
Or maybe it's just a budget line. It's just a
No,
budget.
let them,
Is that's the $10,000, right?
I
Yes,
think
it's-
it was, but it's
yes, yes.
nothing now, but I
Yes,
just want to
there's
know.
nothing now.
Because there was one.
There was one some time
Long
ago.
time
I
ago,
can
we
investigate
cut
it and
out.
get it back to you.
Okay.
I think that was, it was now being funded by grant. So that's what the question was explained before, right? That it was a grant,
There's an
it's grant
employee,
funded.
I think, who had a camp.
No, it
and
was,
then they
I
no
think,
longer-
so just to pause, it was explained earlier, it is a, go ahead, Mary. Very quickly.
So that particular budget line was several years ago.
Yes.
I don't know how it was used, but we are currently funding our summer programs through our RECOPS
Not a
grant.
camp.
Right.
Page 33, the charter schools. Could you just tell me the total number of Amityville UFSD residents who go to charter school? Not the dollar amount. The dollar amount's there.
64.
64, okay. Just so anybody
Currently.
complains about it, it's actually cheaper to let them go there because we have higher costs when they come here. The same with the parochial schools. I would know, he would love for the parochial schools to come back, but it would cost us more for them to come here. Anybody who doubts that needs to reread the budget. And that, I believe, is it, but I'm really concerned that you have already put into your budget the $2 million. And then what's going to happen when you get close to the budget, you gotta put it out to the public, and you haven't gotten that money.
All right, so
But-
the overall timer went over. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm sorry. The timer went off. Thank you.
We're gonna get,
We're working on that aspect. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go to the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. All right, there's one item that we do have to add, and it's going to be under 3A1. All right. And when I get to that portion, I will mention it. So can I have a motion for agenda item 2C1, please?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing is first. Caroline Fanning is second, and that is the resolution for resolve the Board of Education hereby approves a consulting service agreement with Eileen Becker for the period of March 13, 2025, up to and including June 30th, 2025, and authorize the President of the Board of Education to execute the agreement. Any questions on this item, board members?
no.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carol?
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda to add agenda item 3A1, which is Girls on the Run MOU?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Carol Seehoff is first. Megan Messon is second. Any question on this item? Okay, all those in favor to amend it?
Can I just say
No.
thank you for expediting it? Thank you very much.
All those in favor to amend it, to add to agenda?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3A1?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing, Caroline Fanning, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3C1, please?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing, Caroline Fanning, any questions on this agenda item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. At this point in time, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing is first, Carol Seehoff is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 6-0. Thank you for coming.